The Great Wall of China is an ancient Chinese fortification built during the Warring States period by the different states. The first major wall was 5,000 kilometers long. It was built during the reign of Qin Shi Huang, the first emperor of the Qin dynasty, after he ended the Warring States period and unified China. This wall was not constructed through a single endeavor, but rather was created by joining several regional walls built earlier by the Warring States. While building the Great Wall of China, Qin Shi Huang also spared no cost in constructing his Erfang Palace complex in Qin's capital city, Xianyang, which is near today's Xi'an in Shanxi Province, China. Although very little remains of it today, the old site of Erfang Palace measures 1,000 meters in width and 500 meters in length. The Great Wall, the Erfang Palace complex, and the terracotta soldiers in Qin Shi Huang's lavish tomb represent masterpieces of ancient architecture and craftsmanship in China, which required enormous levies of manpower and resources. Wooden structured tile top is a unique feature of ancient Chinese architecture. The tenon mortise structure is an essential part in forming wooden structures. Generally speaking, traditional Chinese wooden architecture would start with vertical wooden pillars that are connected by horizontal beams. Numerous short columns are hung from the main beam, and these short columns are then used to support roof surfaces. Ancient Chinese could build an entire house using wooden structured tenon mortise combinations without a single nail. The space between any two columns is called a room. Numerous rooms constitute a single rectangular architecture. Lu Ban lived in the state of Lu during the spring and autumn period between 722 and 481 BC. And is probably the best-known inventor and carpenter throughout Chinese history. It is said that Lu Ban invented carpenter's square, ink marker, lock, drill, ladder, and many other tools. According to the legends, he once made a wooden bird that flew in the sky for 3 days. As a result, Lu Ban was revered as the originator of carpentry and craftsmanship in ancient China. The earliest pottery tile first appeared in the initial phase of the Western Zhou dynasty about 3,000 years ago. Western Zhou tiles can be classified into tube tiles and plate tiles, and were often decorated with calligraphy and patterns of clouds and dragons. An unearthed city map of the Eastern Han period shows that Han cities contained temples, city walls, gates, alleys, government offices, and markets. Temples are special examples of ancient architectures. Representative temples include stone caves, palaces, and pagodas. Buddhism spread to China during the Eastern Han period. Since then, a large number of stone caves were constructed and many Buddha statues were carved. Mukao stone caves in Dunhuang are among the most spectacular of all. In 366 AD, a Buddhist monk was passing by the Mukao area on his way to the west. He saw golden lights shining like thousands of Buddhas, so he stopped and started to build Buddha statues in this area. Constructions of the Buddha statues in Mukao were continued and perfected by many later artists and craftsmen. The Mukao stone caves extend 16-18 meters from the south to the north. There are still 492 stone caves left even today, containing more than 2,000 statues and many surpassingly beautiful frescoes. The Buddha statues made during the Northern Wei period between 386 through 534 AD were particularly grand. They exhibit broad foreheads, long and thin eyebrows, and wave-like hairs. Their upper bodies are exposed, reflecting marks of Indian arts. During the Tang Dynasty, between 618 through 907 AD, the carving and molding of Buddha statues for the development of Mukao stone caves reached a peak. Buddhism was very popular during the Northern and Southern Dynasty period, between 420 through 581 AD. For example, the Northern Wei Dynasty built more than 30,000 temples. The city of Luoyang alone had 1,367 temples at the time. Among the well-preserved wooden structured temples, the earliest one was the Bodhisattva Pavilion in Tianjin, built in 984 AD. This tower pavilion consists of 3 layers and is 23 meters tall. The wooden arch is a unique component in ancient Chinese wooden structured eaves. It was invented during the Qing and Han period. It is formed by overlaying support frames on top of each other. The wooden arch structures in the Bodhisattva Pavilion are large and grand, and contain 24 different varieties depending on their specific locations and functions. Together with other components, they constitute a beautiful and consistent one entity. The Bodhisattva Pavilion endured more than 10 earthquakes since it was last rebuilt and still remains in an excellent condition. Pagoda is another example of ancient temple architecture. It originated from the Buddha pagoda of ancient India. Throughout the history, constructions of the pagodas have been influenced by the ancient Chinese architecture techniques. Earlier pagodas were used to store Buddhist relics and to worship Buddhas. The Sakyamuni Pagoda in the Buddha Palace in Shanxi was built in 1056 by the Liao court. It is a multi-layered wooden structure. The Sakyamuni Pagoda is 67 meters tall, has a base diameter of 30 meters, has an octagonal cross-section. It has 5 explicit layers and 9 hidden layers. Each layer is supported by 24 wooden columns. Various slant supports, beams, and short struts are also used between wooden columns. The top of the pagoda also has an octagonal shape. Winged bells are hung at each layer. The ancient Chinese architecture was at its prime time during the Sui and Tang dynasties. The famous Zhaozhou Arch Bridge gives us a glimpse of the supreme level of advancement in the Chinese architecture at the time. Located above today's Jiao River in Hebei Province, China, and built between 605 and 618 AD in the Sui dynasty, Zhaozhou Bridge is not only the most ancient stone arch bridge in China, but also the most ancient stone arch bridge with a traceable history in the world. Zhaozhou Bridge measures 167 feet in length. There are 2 smaller arches at each end of the bridge called side arches. The 4 side arches effectively reduce the impact of the water on the bridge in the event of flooding because water can pass through the side arches. During the past 1,300 years since it was built, it has endured 10 floods, 8 battles, and numerous earthquakes. Zhaozhou Bridge's foundation is extremely solid. After 1,300 years, both ends of the bridge have each sunk no more than 5 centimeters. Tang Dynasty is regarded as the highest point in Chinese civilization. Huge palace complexes and parks were built in its capital Chang'an and eastern capital Luoyang. Its capital, Chang'an, was the most populous city in the world at the time. The empire saw a flowering of creativity in many fields. Ancient Chinese craftsmen were also able to exploit material properties in constructing wooden structures. The imperial courts also issued standards for consistent measurements and drawing. Buddhism continued to flourish during the Tang period and was adopted by the imperial family.